welcome back, everybody. The hackathon results. I'm excited about this. We've got all the core coders that were here joining us. We don't have a ton of time for the amount of stuff that was done, but it's pretty cool. So I'm going to just get right into it with everybody. I'll let each of the participants introduce themselves so that they can give you an idea of why they're here and what their interests are and where they're going from here and things like that. But everybody that was involved in this was great. I was really impressed. We started brainstorming a demo and it came together like that yesterday morning. I'm like I said, I'm excited for you guys to see it. So I'll quit talking and get into it. So first we're going to kick it off with Sam. Sam and I were working together on getting some of the command line tooling and the backend libraries and stuff going. So Sam, take it away, introduce yourself, and then let's do a little demo.
All right. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm Sam Knoll. I'm excited to be, working on this with the soil health, sorry, I'm getting some weird feedback through somebody. It's hearing myself speak. Yeah. Okay, great. So yeah, the first step in all of this, I think we've got our Modus standard that we were working with. And the first piece is, okay, let's get some data into that standard from a variety of formats. And so, yeah, that's what Aaron and I have been working on. I don't know, we got a bunch of lab data. I'm not sure if we've shared any of that, but we have a variety of different providers of the lab data. So some from Tomcat, some from Skidmore, University of Georgia's labs. And so we came up with a tool to convert through some of these formats. So let me just show you what it does a little bit. So what we can do is take, let's see here, all the CSV files and all of the Excel files. You can feed it any of those, and you can get it into a JSON format. So you can run this command, and now we can see for Tomcat, we've got a variety of files ending in .json now. So we can go in, you could look at one. And we can see we've got all of the data from the Excel converted into this Modus JSON format. So here we can see the actual sample results for a particular sample.
Hey, Sam, can you increase the text size on the command line?
I'm not sure if I can very easily. Yeah. Whoop. Somehow no, actually, I don't think I can very easily. Sorry. Unless, yeah, I don't think so. Can everybody, is it really difficult to see? I mean, I think I can increase it.
It's okay. I've got a big enough monitor, but somebody they can't see. It's just.
Yeah, I have to go into the preferences deeper than yeah.
Don't worry about it. You're good.
Okay. And then now that you have, so say you have some JSON formats, you need to go back into a CSV. And that gives us the advantage that now that we have all of these individual JSON files, if you just prefer, a big flat Excel spreadsheet, I'm talking to you, Dr. Buckmaster, if he's here, you can take all of those things and you just tell it what output file you want. It's called outfile.csv, and you can give it all of the JSON file inputs like so. And now if we look at this output file, you can see it's got stuff in it. And if we want to view it somewhere that looks a little more normal, I got it pulled up here into Google Sheets. And you can see, some of these had different sample results, so organic matter, whereas others may have had, here's total carbon, right? So some labs reported on different things, but we have it all in a single file. And so, yeah, I think this is something that would be really nifty to work with. And this is basically like a database. Be great for something like Power BI, which is my segue to Kevin. I think he's taking over next. So Kevin Saul. Thanks, everybody. It's been exciting to work on this. I told the others I'm already looking forward to the second hackathon. So maybe I can work with some of the other folks that I didn't get a chance with this go around. Thanks.
Okay. Hi, yeah, I'm Kevin Saul, and I'm a data engineer. In the past, my recent career has been doing data engineering for products related to financial tech. And I've just recently started being self-employed as an independent consultant in the area of ecology, and agricultural tech is something that I'm really interested in. So I joined today to kind of find out what people were doing in this space. Let me share my screen. What I did was I took data, was more on the consumption side of the data. So how to read the data out of both the JSON format and also the CSV format. I'll share my screen. So for consuming the data, I was using Power BI. I don't know how familiar with everybody is with Power BI, but it's a tool from Microsoft. Oops, what happened? Sorry about that. Can you also see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Actually, this file that I've got up right now is the file that uses the JSON source file. So this is Power BI desktop file. And what I use for the data source for this Power BI is a collection of JSON files that were from the Tomcat project. So this folder contains many different files, and Power BI actually has tools for importing from a folder of multiple files and then combining all of the data from the different files and going through and parsing it out. And this has a Microsoft Bing map here, and you can, it shows that once the data is in here, I can do different interactive slicing of the data by different metrics. I've got different tests here that you can select and see the different values, the bubble size representing the quantity and the data being displayed below. I just did a few different things with it. This was just to show an example of how you can read the data in and then start looking at it, get some ideas for how you might want to eventually make some kind of a production system out of this. This would be just kind of like a prototype of like initial analysis or investigative looking into data by kind of on a one-off basis. If you have a collection of those JSON files, that you can access, you can point this at the folder and ingest them into the Power BI desktop and then start using different visualizations to analyze it. And then I also did the same thing with the CSV file, but bringing it first into SQL Server. So this one with the JSON files, it's importing the data into Power BI desktop. And then for the other example, I used SQL as a data source. So first I created a big table to match the flat file format that Sam was showing there, and created a database with just like one big flat land file. If there was more time, I would also do some relational data modeling here and divide this table back out into kind of, you probably want some of this repeated information in dimensions and the measures and facts, but this is just one big flat file. To show you here, I've imported it into SQL Server. And then I've got another Power BI file similar to the other one, where the difference here is that the data is not actually imported into Power BI. It's using a direct a direct query against the SQL database itself. But some of the same things can be done here where you can select a different sample date. I guess some of these don't have samples for results for everything. And show there's sample ID, but you could, you can add other slicers and other types of visualizations, charts, and things like that. I think I have some examples of some of the other charts here. You can do different charts and things like that. That's pretty much it. The demo is just to show the interoperability between the two different types of converted files, JSON files and CSV files, and then using that to consume it into a reporting tool.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. That was
Yeah.
great. So Kevin sent the first picture of that last, like yesterday afternoon. So we went from, in the course of like 4 or 5 hours, from like inaccessible stuff to Modus to Power BI visualizations already. So that was quick. So Kevin's provided this this Power BI file. Actually, I'm going to be uploading it to the GitHub repo with all the other stuff that's here. So thanks to Kevin for that. And if you guys want to download it and try it yourself too, you're welcome to pull it from there and try it. So next up is going to be the Open Team of Greg, Michael, and Paul. You guys can unmute. I think I see Paul. I'm looking for Mike Stenta. There's Mike and Greg. There's Greg. All right, guys, take it away.
Hi, everyone. This is Mike Stenta. Greg, are you prepared to start?
I don't hear Greg.
You're very quiet.
Very
It's always
quiet.
quiet when it starts.
Oh,
Can you
there
hear
we
me
go.
now? Yeah.
Now I hear you.
Okay. So we're going to show the process of from data collection, turning it into Modus from one form through SurveyStack, and then storing it into PharmOS, or pulling it directly into PharmOS. That's what Mike's going to show. And then Paul's going to talk about using RDF as a way to more effectively share even sort of beyond that, and they'll explain their parts. So I'll start. Good old share screen's not working. Let's see. We need to close these other windows. Tested everything except sharing screen and Zoom. Maybe you can go first, Mike.
Someone should fix that part of the
Okay.
soil health tech stack.
Yeah, I can go first just to demo what I was working on. So what the goal of my work was during this hackathon was to basically take the JSON files that Aaron and his team created, which were translations of the original Modus XML into JSON, which is a format that's just a little bit easier to work with, and make a importer for that in PharmOS. And so if you're not familiar, PharmOS is an open source farm management system, which allows you to track everything from your plants, your animals, your land, your equipment, as well as all of your logs like activities, harvests, inputs, and lab tests. So what we're going to be doing here is basically taking a Modus JSON file, importing it into a set of lab test logs in PharmOS that can then be associated with your other assets, like a particular field or plantings or things like that. So here is the output of this hackathon. It's a module that's open source and it's up on GitHub right now, github.com/mstenta/farmmodus. And it's just a first pass at this, but just wanted to reiterate that everything in PharmOS is open source, so you can grab this and play with it right now if you wanted to. And for this demo, we set up a modus-party.pharmos.net. So this is just an instance of PharmOS that we can play around with. I imported, with permission, I imported the geometries from the Tomcat Ranch so that we can kind of show some stuff in context. And Greg was going to show pushing logs from SurveyStack into this instance too. So if he's able to after this, he can do that. But yeah, so basically we created alongside So PharmaOS has some importers. One is a KML, but now we added this new Modis import. So if I click on that, I have the option to choose a JSON file. So I'm just going to take this Tomcat Ranch one that was part of the data that Aaron provided. And then what you can do is you can also optionally reference one of your locations that are already in PharmaOS. So if you know that these samples were taken within this location and you want to link those there, you can do that. So then I'll click parse. And what this is going to do is read the JSON and put together a set of logs, some drafts of logs that it's going to create. And it's going to kind of come up with its own name for it. So this is just kind of concatenating together some of the report ID names that were inside the JSON. So we might change some of these things. Again, this is all just a first pass, but it can also grab the geometry and the date, as well as each of the nutrient measurements from that JSON. So this just gives me an initial pass to review, make sure everything looks good. I can decide some of these I don't want to import maybe, but then ultimately down at the bottom, I click create lab test logs. And this is just parsing through all that JSON, building logs in the relational database, the SQL database of PharmaOS. And then at the end, it spits out all of the links to the logs that are created. So if I were to click on one of these, so now this log has that name that we kind of gave it automatically. It has the point on the map where the log or where the sample was taken from, and it has all of that information in it. So it has the date, it has all of these various quantity measurements, and each one of these is broken out as a separate record in the database, so it can actually be queried independently too, which is really useful. And just to show that really quick, if I jump over to this other standard, this is just a standard screen that comes with PharmaOS, which allows you to see all of your quantity measurements broken out and filter them down. So what's nice about this now is I can come in and say, just show me all the bulk densities that have been imported. And then I can see here all the different bulk densities, and I can click through to each log that those are associated with to see what field they're associated with. I can also then click on this location, so I can go to that crop field. And this is the record for my land asset. So then I can go over here to logs and see everything that's ever been done to this field, including the lab tests, but also things like seedings and inputs or other kinds of logs that I might be taking. So this is all kind of available in one place, which makes it easy to get. And so the other thing I just wanted to kind of emphasize here is that this importer that we put together is just kind of a simple example of how we could get Modis JSON data into PharmaOS by uploading a file. But the same code, the same logic can be used to get that data through other mechanisms as well, such as automatically transmitting it from a soil test lab. So if a lab knows that you have a PharmaOS, they could then type in the URL and basically push that directly to your instance, have it parse through and create these logs for you. That's kind of what we're hoping to do with the USDA work we're working on, and that's kind of where we're headed in the very near future. So it's been great to have some real JSON to work with here. I really thank Aaron for all the hard work on that. And yeah, looking forward to next steps and feedback on this.
Cool. All right, let me give it another go. Ah, killer. Paul, do you know your survey stack login?
I do not.
Mike, do you know yours?
No, sorry.
All right, it doesn't matter. You can get a one-click login anyway. So here, let's give it a go. If we can do this without me driving, then it's really good. If not, then
I did see it earlier. I did see it, so it worked.
So Mike, why don't you share screen? You have a login, Mike at Farmier, or yeah, Mike at Farmier has a login, so you can do like a one-click login to Survey Stack. And I've already assigned you the fields and everything. And then you can just go to the survey link and it should work.
Sure, give me 1 second. I'll get that.
Yeah, sorry, I'm on Zoom calls all the time that seem to work, and then all of a sudden they don't. So I don't know. It's just life.
It's a function of the number of people watching. If a few people would drop off, then it would work.
This is good because I have a presentation tomorrow. It's probably on Zoom, so now I know. Cool. All right, click start. So my job, or the role that I was playing is, I'm a person, I'm gonna go sample in the field. I want to be able to get those samples off to a lab so that they can give me back the same sample IDs associated with the stuff that I sent them, and then form a Modis object that I'm going to send over to PharmOS. So Mike is gonna, you should click on that. Let's see. Are you logged in as Mike at Farmier?
I believe so. Yep. Oh, but do I need to change my active group?
No, it shouldn't matter.
Oh.
Well, click next. We'll create a field. That's fine. So let's see if the farm shows up at the top. Yeah, there you go. Modus Party Farm. Okay. So we're going to create it. So that's the thing, is you can actually create a field first, or you can just pick a field. You know, put in a field name. We have to have a field name. And then just draw the field at the bottom. So we're creating a field that's actually going to end up in PharmOS, and then we're going to associate actual sample points with it and store it in the Modis format. So yeah, wherever. Yep. And then next. So now, yep, allow, wait. It's a little hard on your computer because on your phone, normally it's just going to go, you know, get your location and stuff. So the idea here is to put in the sample ID and then to pick the location that you're sampling at, hopefully. If it grants you permissions. Again, this is something you should be doing on your phone, not on your computer, which actually doesn't have GPS coordinates.
I'm worried that I might have a little bit of hard insecurity on this. That
I gotcha. All right.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, that's all right. I mean, I can just explain. So if you go back, well, it's all right. So yeah, I mean, basically what you're doing is you're choosing sample IDs, you're associating locations with it, then you're exporting those sample IDs to the lab. So they get a big long list of the IDs that you ship to them. And then they're going to ship back their CSV format. And then in this same survey, it parses that format using the libraries that that they made at Purdue, and then converts it into Modis. And then we combine the latitude, longitude, and the field name into that Modis object, which it's not necessarily going to have when it comes back from the lab. And then it pushes that straight to PharmOS. That's what the process should do if I could share my screen. So that kind of gets to where Mike started, which is being able to actually have a log in a farm management information system that has the appropriate information parsed. So yeah, sorry I couldn't show it. It's cool looking.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, so I had that, as I was saying to you, I had that exact problem the night before the hackathon. We were trying to get the last sets of samples and they were sort of pre-labeled and we had to get the IDs back extracted from them. I haven't seen a lab yet that does actually send the GPS locations back because you don't typically send those to the lab. So what I saw from you was essentially use this tool when you take the samples and then you essentially have everything you need to end up with all the georeference stuff in PharmOS earlier, which was great. With that, then we've got the next trio. The last three to go is going to be JD, Tim, and Kenny. Oh wait, Paul, you guys.
Can I go really quick?
Okay.
Cool. So I spent a little bit of time on the regen network side of things.
Oh, great.
And so, yeah, let's see. Let me know if that didn't come up.
I see it.
Great. So Regen Network is creating public infrastructure for basically assigning ecological credits to land stewards. And so for their platform, you can register a methodology on their blockchain. And once you've done that, you then have the ability to actually assign credits, which could be a carbon credit or like a pollination or biodiversity credit to people, and then they can sell them. And so what's really powerful about the blockchain is that you can actually register data that supports those claims. And so their format they use is RDF, and one common format of RDF is JSON LD. So what I've done is I've created a very rough schema for Modus in the Shackle language. So I almost got like all of the soil attributes in here. And then what I can do is actually anchor some data onto the blockchain. I'm just going to change this really quick. What this is doing is it's hashing that data. So I got to hash that data and a unique identifier for it. If I come over here, reload, this is the blockchain. You can see 15 seconds ago, this piece of data was registered. And then I can come over here, and this is a query tool for RDF data using the Sparkle query language. So if I hit play, you can see my new sample number 7 came in, and this query language has filters, so you can filter by different things that could come down. Say only sample 7, or only the samples in this location, or et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, that's kind of that very quick.
Wow, I didn't even know you had it actually working yet. Surprised me. That is great. I thought you might just have the RDF schema. So now what you're saying is so far in the hackathon, we've gone from CSV files to JSON to FarmOS to blockchain at Regen, right? So
yeah.
So anxious to see where we go from here. So JD, Tim, and Kenny, you guys are up. Why don't you give it a shot here? And we've got, yeah, we're getting close to about, got about 10 minutes.
Sure. I think I will start, and then JD is maybe is going to continue. Let me share my screen.
I'm trying to stop my screen share. You might need to kick me off the button.
Yeah, this will stop other screen sharing. Sure, that's what I want. All right. Let's see. There we go. So we came very much from the idea, imagine you get such a Modus file or such a JSON file, and you would just like to know very quickly of like what is in the file, where like what kind of data points do you have, and et cetera, where were they located, without having too many hassles. And we wanted to make this accessible for everyone. So we created an API that basically you just send it this JSON file, and then you get an HTML report back that you can just open in any browser on any phone. Like you don't have to have anything installed, it just works. So yeah, it's in a GitHub repository. If I actually created a merge pull request for the Modus data for the Modus Git. If somebody wants to accept it, feel free.
Already did.
Oh, you already did. Great.
Yeah.
So, so that's cool. So basically, the API is running. If Zoom would not hide my stuff. So it's here. It's running on this URL, but anyone can run this with a couple of clicks if they know how to start a Docker container. And then we've got this Modus JSON to HTML, and I just wanted to show you how easy it is to make use of it. And I think it's also kind of nice in one way that I have not seen so far. It supports multiple Modus JSON files. So there's usually there can be one too many events in such a file, or there can also just be many of these files. And so you can just send a couple of them to the endpoint in this case. And then once it's calculated, you get it back. And then we can just open, in this case, I saved it to test HTML. And here we go. So we got, let it load a bit. As you can see, it's again the Tomcat data that I just pushed up there. It is all the locations where it was collected. Then for all the individual elements, I will get back to that why it looks so horrible, but basically you can select different samples and sample IDs and also compare them with each other and see basically what's happening. And on top of that, you have all the data. Unfortunately, Kenny and JD's work, I was not able to incorporate all of it into the endpoint of the API because they were partially working in R and I was mostly working in Python, and then there were just issues with it. But I will show you how their report looked like. And once again, if I get access to my tabs, it's here. No. Here we go. So basically, one of the key interests we might have is the texture, and then we can plot it nicely. Any kind of this data that comes in into such a texture graph, it shows us like how one data set compares to another one. And yeah, we can also have like individual like nutrients or elements that we are measuring nicely graphed out. I also had multiple other graphs. I don't know, it is over time, but unfortunately we only had always 2 data points for it, so it didn't really make sense to compare them really. So I left it out. Anyways, so I think maybe I had give the mic to JD because it actually really matters for her work, which I think is great.
Yeah, so I work for the Washington State Department of Agriculture, and we just did the soil sampling campaign. And so this is a really cool project to kind of use the output from this hackathon in my actual work, which is really cool. So like the main issue, right, is the producers getting a soil health report back that just has their results and for all the parameters, but don't really know how to make sense of it or can compare across different like regions or crops. So here's the need for a really easy to use interactive report where somebody can actually just go in, download or upload their data, and then get this HTML report that can be opened on any browser, on any phone. And then they can go through and click on their points for each field and then compare the data for each of those fields. And over time and compare over different depths. So just having that opportunity to be able to compare based on what your interest is. So yeah, if we had more time, of course, we would have been able to better merge the 2 reports. But yeah.
That's great. Thanks, JD.
One more thing that I wanted to add, I forgot. We actually have also made a small interface that you can use. All right. So basically, if you go to soil upload, and there we got just a tiny application and running at the moment. And you can just take your files that you have already. And again, it's a one-to-many, so it doesn't matter like if you send one or multiple, but you just select it and then you just upload it. It sends it to the API, and then in a couple of seconds, there will be this download button, and you can just download the HTML report. And voila, you get an HTML report of your JSON file. And we can open it. Oh yeah, and if you're interested in the codes, I left them in for now because maybe somebody would like to see how we, in like 5 lines of code, flatten the files or so. I think it could be interesting if somebody is working with Python and with these files in general. All right, that's from us.
Okay. So JD, we got a little intro from you. Tim, I don't think we got any intro from you. And Kenny, I want to make sure too you get a chance to intro yourself. So Tim, who are you and where are you from?
Yeah, right. So actually, I'm from Germany, and I created a company in the Netherlands, Rotterdam precisely, and we are working on accelerating the transition towards regenerative agriculture. And we want to be the foundational layer, data layer between the different actors in this entire system. And previously we worked, I don't know, with like fertilizers and some seeds, and now we have like a certain yield. But then when we go towards more sustainable practices, we have many more things that we have to take care of. And so ideally, we also would like to collect more data and also make more sense of this data. And this is where we come in. We started this year, so that's our path.
All right, good luck. Thanks. Kenny, how about you?
Hi, I'm a research associate in Noble Research Institute. We're in Ardmore, Oklahoma. Last 2 years, we have a transition to regenerative ranching. And these 2 years, we have been heavily, spending time collecting soils data from our ranches, and we have hundreds of samples, soil samples. And I wanted to participate here so that, I understand what's the common nomenclature, or what are the standards, what does the jargon look like in terms of soils, and just interacting with so many of you, and just getting involved in this hackathon. It's been a wonderful opportunity, and the special push towards open science is very interesting to me, and I'm all in for open science and open source. So yep. And the codes that we have, I think JDC put on the GitHub too. That's also in R, if somebody wants to, if somebody prefers R flavored scripting. So yeah, feel free to give us feedback, or things we can improve on. Again, it was a short time, but it's very interesting to see the products we have come, even within such a short time. Yeah. Thank you.
I also saw some interest from the soil texture chart. There's actually a really cool R package called Soil Texture that allows you to upload sand, silt, and clay percentages, and then plot them on a triangle that uses class systems. You can choose like USDA, French, there's a bunch of different class systems, which is awesome.
That is great. Oh, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like we just saw interoperability in action. 4 or 5 languages, 3 or 4 at least different tools. You didn't see the things we didn't quite get done. Sam is like this close to automatically pulling in Sergo data for every point based on its GPS. And we had the idea this morning, even since we have the depth, he could actually tell you the exact soil horizon there and the properties about that. All in your spreadsheet if you just want it all in one place. I mean, that we were so close on that. The conversions should be able to start with any CSV, and you don't even have to go to the JSON first. It can do it internally. Just drop a batch of spreadsheets in somewhere and end up with these HTML reports or other things. So I mean, I'm just blown away by how much you guys all got done. So thank you very much, everybody. And I think we are, if Martha's right, yeah. You can, I don't know if it works to like unmute everybody and clap or whatever you guys, but thank you so much, everybody. We're going to have a set of breakouts now. Martha, if you want to kind of kick us off into that.
Sure. So we're going to kind of zip everybody. If you did the breakouts yesterday, we kind of zipped off into different rooms. So that's going to happen again shortly. We really want to focus on, where do we go from here? How do we take this? What are those collaborations and things that we can build, and how can we build off of the things that we've seen today in the hackathon. So we'll go from there. We'll go into the breakout rooms for a little bit. We'll come back, have some report outs. So discussion, group leaders, take notes, because we will have a little bit more time for breakouts today versus last time. And then at 40 past to the hour, we'll be back and we'll have a session on more in depth on where we'll go in, where we will go from here. So thanks to all the programmers and folks working on this. It's really cool stuff, and excited to keep talking.
Just getting Modus adopted. getting Modus adopted widely is a place to go. Like, let's have something that's uniform and standard. And then along with that, the standard operating procedures for sampling and analysis, just recognizing there's variation. And okay, maybe you think you have something better than, slightly better than what's standard, but in the end, it'd be better for all reasonably standard. So having some SOPs. And then what was the last thing there, Martha?
Tim had kind of identified how can we take this, and this can be maybe some of the discussion too, as we have in the next, we're identifying some of the top 5 priorities to solve so that labs can make better use of this. So build out some actual use cases, have some examples that we can, I make my note here, make actually useful to agronomists and to farmers. So put things in a format that farmers can take action on.
Yeah, and my add to that was, at least for where we live, there exists the thing called the Tri-State Fertilizer Nutrient Recommendations. And I would just like to have all that data flow into an algorithm that you feed the soil data in, use that algorithm, and out comes your prescription maps for everything to do everywhere. So, good, I'll pass.
Great, thank you. So we want to kick it over to Rob, your group.
Yeah, do you want me to launch into, I've actually incorporated everything from my group into my where do we go from here comments. So you want me to hold off on that?
You can hold off on that.
Okay.
We've got 6 minutes, so we got to go fast. Who wants to go next?
Martha, I think we were gonna have during that where do we go from here portion, that's where we're gonna have those folks do their little report.
Some of the report outs.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this wrong, so sorry
It's okay.
about that.
So Rob's ready. We'll just start his section.
Start with
early.
Rob.
You want me to just jump in then?
Sure, yeah, go for it. We're good.
Okay. So, and Lakeisha was in my breakout, so I'm stealing some of the ideas that came in there, but I liked having the 2-day format because it allowed me at least to give some thought to yesterday's conversation. So I'm a little light in terms of incorporating the hackathon thoughts. So this might be a little bit more from the conference, but, and I'm gonna be a little off color just so we can have some giggles and grins. So bear with me. The first idea that I have is that I think we had 150 people signed up for this event or participating. This is a bigger niche than I thought, and some young enterprising person should go start basically an industry rag for soil health data. And you could call it the Soil Health Information Tech News, SHIT News, but we might have to work on the marketing a little bit. It'd be a directory or catalog to have the ecosystem of efforts to improve soil health. Talk about the latest development. I mean, I didn't know about Range C. I didn't know about the STAR program in Colorado. I didn't know about Trace Genomics soil sustainability performance rating. I've learned all of these new things, and like, where do I go? And I think if you look at things like we've seen Food Plus Tech Connect on the food tech side, Ag Funder News talks about startup news. I don't think it has to be a daily or a weekly thing, but there's an opportunity there. That's one idea. The second one is we obviously talked about the sovereignty of ag data. Again, if we want to focus this just on soil health, we could call it the data and information privacy for soil health improvement and transformation. Dipshit. But the other thing that we might really want to do, we want to broaden it and look a little bit more at ag data, is an event or something called Getting Over SAD, Sovereignty of Ag Data, because this is a stumbling block for events and conferences and progress. We have status code players who use this as a way to stifle innovation. And so we just go address it head on and talk about things like the Open Team Ag Data Wallet and the Ag Data Bill of Rights, and just, again, create that catalog of all the great technologies that are out there. The third idea gets to that garbage in, garbage out problem that we talked about. And I'm calling it SHLTSOP, Soil Health Lab Information Technique Standard SOP. This came out of my breakout group yesterday. It starts with Andres and Christine coordinating to make sure that Motus has incorporated the Soil Health Institute's soil sample prep standards or best practices, their SOPs. And then we kick off the Motus 2.0 World Domination Plan. And I think we should go create a gang. It's going to be a nonviolent gang. I think we need a good logo. I think we need FAR, maybe to fund some brass knuckles. And we go intimidate and coerce some people to go adopt Motus. I got 3 names for the gang that we can maybe put in a Slido survey: the Soil Health Riders, Angels of Motus, or the Motus Heads. We go and we talk and say, we have this, and we take it either to the, we take it to the NAPT on their proficiency testing program, alta.ag on their ag lab proficiency. And I just learned about the Earth Science Information Partners, and just tell them that they need to go adopt this. The other thing is then we also go lean on the tri-societies, which also sounds like a gang to me, but that's the American Society of Agronomy, Crop Science Society of America, and the Soil Science Society of America. And go tell them that we have now some way to minimize that garbage in, garbage out problem. The last thing, and I don't have as much on this, I'll kick it over, is just getting soil health on the balance sheet. And I think it is interesting, we talked in our breakout group about, could you actually use one single number, as Ron from Trace Genomics was talking about. From a PR perspective, is incredibly powerful. You've got that one single number to base off to get soil health on a balance sheet. It's almost like a corn suitability index for land. And I'll stop there.
Am I up next, or is it true?
Go ahead.
You can be next.
Well, the first thing I was gonna say is, like, if we could charge you, Rob, for the by the acronym, we would have enough for those brass knuckles, right? Like, FAR would not participate in the funding of that. But that was a great summary. I think I'll just piggyback and say that my summary or my impressions about where we could go from here kind of twofold. I heard a lot of commonality around some of the challenges that Rob described, and I'm sure Drew will capture as well. So what I was most impacted by is the appetite or interest around solving questions around this sovereignty of ag data or data privacy or these challenges. And then the other thing that I was struck by is how far the hackathon members got in such a short amount of time. So it's also this feeling of, if we could just get folks in the room to truly focus on this, I believe that the way that we could move it so much further is extremely important. So some of the ways we could move forward is to have additional conversations. I think Jane said it yesterday. We don't necessarily need 15 more conferences, but clearly having a group of people really just trying to talk through these challenges and then potentially identifying ways we could work together. Just in 2 days, right? The amount of progress that was made, like, I was amazed, like, they started and then they're this far along. I'm sure the process wasn't simple, but it felt like magic to me. And so thinking about ways to facilitate, a lot of what we heard in our group is there's a lot of information, but people don't know where it is. So how do we make sure that there are places where people can access who's doing the work where, right? A lot of the challenges we heard is everything feels fragmented. So what are things like an organization like mine? What can we, that's what I'm thinking now, is what can we do to continue this community and to foster more transparency and sharing of information so that people are connecting more and people are connecting to these other initiatives. Like, we didn't know about the ESIP group until a moment ago. I was like, oh, there are other groups. And then the other thing was there's opportunity to leverage from other sectors that have figured out some of these challenges. So how do we plug into that? So I think those are kind of my 3, where do we go from here? Like the tasks I will take accountability for, or maybe continuing to work with Farm Foundation and think about, like, how do we create more opportunity for discussion, connection, leveraging, and like what are some things that we could continue and keep this momentum of this community, but then bringing in others to really start prioritizing, as someone said previously, what we could actually do together. So I hope that's what I was supposed to do. Rob's presentation dazzled me, and so I was a little bit like, oh, I don't know, am I supposed to be doing something else now? So I hope that's what y'all wanted from me.
Oh, that's perfect, Lakeisha. Thank you. I think I mean, just in a really short term, all these different groups and things that we've learned about, if you've got something like that, send it my way. We can put those on the event website, and that can start to be the skeletal build out of kind of a hub for a lot of this stuff. Because certainly I've learned some things that I didn't know existed, and I hope, it sounds like others have as well. So send me your stuff, and we'll start collecting it and take it from there. And that can be done, within a matter of days. So thank you, Lakeisha. Thanks, Rob. Drew, you ready?
Yeah, well, Rob, that was fantastic. Like, I mean, you should have gone last, because now we have to.
How do we follow that, right?
How do we do that, man?
You need some acronyms, Drew.
I do. All right, I'm working on
acronyms.
those, but I'm just not so quick on my feet. But I'm going to echo my colleagues here. It was let me step into the world of the hackathon, because my group had all those amazing engineers in it, and I was like totally overwhelmed with like how well that demo went, because I understand and appreciate the amount of work behind them. But just to summarize, from the engineering and technical side, I think is parallel to what I feel the next steps are, as we keep taking steps. Like, we have some momentum here. We're walking down this path. Our next step is to continue to take those steps and to report back to our broader community the findings that we have here today. And then how do we engage more people in the conversation? There was a small group of committed individuals that came together to bring this event to us all. And I think we need to continue to support those organizations, Oats and Farm Foundation and Open Team and others that have really contributed to this. And let's keep making those steps. Specifically, looping back in with Ag Gateway, we got to use Modus, and boy, we put it through the paces, and we found some things, and we probably did some things wrong, and we did some things right. And so let's keep taking steps with that, not pause the clock, but rather get right on a debrief with them. And there's a lot of specifics around what can be the next most useful things. And I won't get into all of them, but a couple that stuck out to me is let's actually make a tool, and maybe like this is the next hackathon idea. Let's make a tool where I can take the things I got, these PDFs trapped in my file folder that I don't do a lot with, and let's put them to work in a way where we could correlate the metadata, the application and weather and tissue and other sample data, and bring it together to drive useful insights. Because that's what everybody was really talking about, right? We have interoperability of soil data, but it's really valuable when we can correlate it with the other metadata that we have. And let's keep doing the difficult work of standardizing units and nomenclatures and some of the technical items that continue to need work, and we need funding for that. We need resources, to your point, Keisha. We need to have some folks that can focus on that, and I'm excited that I think the people are here today to do that. So that's pretty exciting. I spend a lot of time helping industry cross the entire supply value chain. I'm passionate about what happens on the farm and in the soil, but I get to connect all the way through to retail and in the compliance frameworks of how do we communicate the value and the claims that happen on the farm and that are associated with the product. And as that product and that data moves across the supply chains, how do we maintain trust? How do we maintain data independence and data sovereignty? And it's something I'm really passionate and excited to work on. And so I was also excited that became such a focal point of the conversation here today. And what I would like to see as we move forward with that, as others have mentioned, that is a part of what we should move forward with, trust being so important, something we can't break. It's essential to the relationships that we have. But I feel our approach is to be a collaborator and a participant in a broader supply chain conversation, because other people have these same challenges around data sovereignty and what's appropriate in terms of privacy and use. And we know that soil data and the related other metadata is associated to a product that moves across the supply chain, and that data is part of the conversation. we're a part of that conversation. We shouldn't try to reinvent the wheel, but we should rather be part of a broader global supply chain conversation in the context of data sovereignty. And I feel like we're in a great position with a practical use case that could be really valuable to those conversations. So I feel like we should join forces in that regard. So those would be my next steps. Keep stepping, connect up with the tools that we're using, continue to make them better, get some practical tools out there that people could use, and convene and get our arms around some of the other conversations that are happening.
That's great. Thanks, Drew. Dorn, you ready?
I am indeed. Yeah. No, this is just so inspirational and really glad. And I will attempt to both sort of summarize, but also I want to give credit to our last breakout conversation, which I thought was really exciting, and just recognizing again the power and the pace at which things can move forward when we actually do start to see interoperability in practice, as Aaron said. I'll just reflect, in terms of where we go from here. This is sort of a big picture thinking. I've mentioned this to many folks recently, but there's a recent history of the Long Land War that profiled the origins of the FAO and their early ambitions coming out of World War II and Reconstruction globally. And really they had an ambition to map all soils on Earth at a level that technical service providers could make site-specific recommendations. And the tech wasn't there. They really didn't achieve that. There was a valiant effort to do that global soils map. And I feel like we're now at the cusp. It's just been really kind of moving to actually read that ambition and all the struggles that they ended up in the 50s and 60s to try to do that. And where we are now, where we actually have the possibility of the low enough cost sort of tools and technologies, if we do it the way we've seen today, if we take this data that we're using individually and are able to aggregate that, we can actually generate that and the benefits from that. So I just want to sort of frame that has been in my mind. And in terms of scoping our ambition, if they had that ambition in the 50s with nothing like the kind of tools and techs we have now, I think we can maybe dream. We have permission to maybe dream somewhat on that scale. The other thing I wanted to really note was actually build on Drew's comment, which is like we have to keep on keeping on. Like a big part of this is the sustained effort and continuing to take steps. And so the hackathons are great, but we've started actually using a term called collabathon, which means sort of, yeah, we have these intense moments, but it's a sustained effort, like a marathon. Like we have to keep coming back. So I'll highlight that there's the Gathering for Open Ag Tech that a number of folks here have been participating in. We'll be continuing some of this. I really welcome with all the members in this community is lining up. What does that sustained effort look like? What's the cadence and the ways in which we can continue to build the community and the platform for collaboration on this? And again, just to highlight that, we saw what can happen when we start to bridge some of these organizations and communities between Ag Gateway and Awada and PharmaOS and SurveyStack and Regen and and many others that I think we're starting to come in. So I think that's one of the key next steps is that sustained effort. And I think some of that is also some of these tools are mature enough and in use that I think it's time to start creating a registry like Play Store or Apple Store, where we can say these are the ones that have been designed to be interoperable and have been peer reviewed and been hammered on, and make this findable. So we've been hearing a lot in our work with USDA about this fair in practice. How do we take this findable, interoperable, reusable, which is usually applies to just open data, and how do we make that apply to applications? How do we make that apply to the development process at its core, and create the fair in practice is not just these applications that allow us to create government data sets that are fair and interoperable, research portfolios and data management sort of schemas that we can provide to all of the different research projects or corporate funded stuff to allow the option for integration. So that's the thing. And I think that came through really clearly in our working session this afternoon, was that potential for creating new data products once you can see how much you can do, how quickly, when these things start to actually work together. And so certainly the benchmarking, the apples to apples comparison that things like community platform or coffee shop are certainly another thing. But the requirement is these conversations that 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 Rob mentioned is like that, and others, that data sovereignty is sort of prerequisite. So I think that's definitely going to be a theme for upcoming conversations, and building those agreed upon and building on existing efforts around data use agreements to allow that bigger vision and create these really cool farm ratios and management indicators that come when we can aggregate our private and public data. And we talked about in our group the pounds of gain per inch of rain, the indexes that bridge our management with our environmental observations. So and I'll just mention one last thing, I'm probably over, but there's so much, is that one of the things that's coming right up, that this is leading direct, like the work this today is going to go direct. We heard it from folks in California and Canada and Washington State in our group, that the work today is going to go directly into use. And I can say that the same here, is that this is, the work here on direct delivery of lab results is part of the work we're doing with PharmOS, with the producer operational data system for the USDA dynamic soils property database. Like, there's a direct pathway to deliver to creating the US version of that public database that is part of CIG and other programs that are gathering data nationally to be able to create that. So I think I just want to highlight there's some direct next steps, and I want to give a huge shout out to all the work that both this weekend, but obviously, decade worth of work leading up to this that made it quick, but that there's some really concrete next steps that I think we'll see even in the coming months. So I'll close, I guess, with just I think this exceeded expectations in a lot of ways. I thought that was really exciting, except that I expect this group to exceed expectations, and that we now have some timelines that may accelerate in terms of if we can truly bring interoperability into practice here. So thanks.
Great. Thank you, Doran. Thank you. Thank you. Aaron, you are up next. Last but not least, sort of.
All right, thanks. I'm a little bit in the weeds, so I may lose the forest for the trees, having come off the hackathon piece, because usually to make actual things work involves a lot of details, and so they're all stuck up here at the moment. So as long as I can get those written down, then I'll have my to-do list for the next few weeks to clean up, tweak whatever is left. So first, coming out of this event, the number one thing I want to say is we worked with Doran. Oats, an open team, coded together. How many years have we been trying to pull this off, Doran? Like,
we needed the specific project to tie it all together, and here we are. It's really exciting.
Right. That's exactly right. I feel like we should pause for a minute and appreciate the gravity of this situation, because it worked really great. I loved working with Mike and Greg and Paul, and this was really fun. So I'm hoping that continues going forward, because now we've got interoperability between open source communities in ag. So that was fantastic for me. You guys had mentioned focus earlier, and that really is the key to getting development done. Is we just stopped doing everything else and coded for a day and a half. And if you haven't coded before, you can all usually get like roughly a month's worth of work done in that just core session, because you're not like offloading and context switching your brain and everything loading back up. So don't expect that you can sustain that pace every day all the time. But I was really happy with how this turned out. Next up for some of this, number one came up, units. There is actually a project called the Universal Code, I think, for units of measurement, UCUM. There may be other unit things out there. I'm hoping maybe I'll learn, maybe Andres, he'd be a good guy. I see him down there that might know some things about this. Part of converting to the standard, a standard form here really needs to be a standard unit, that there's like a key unit that's the number one. Thankfully, the Ag Gateway spreadsheet actually lists like the top unit they want for every kind of thing. Because right now that's kind of a mess, and whatever comes in, it's just going to stay in that unit. And for you to really use it usefully, we got to make some abstraction on top of that can get it into comparable numbers. And speaking of that, I'm hoping to meet with Andres later this week, early next week, to learn about what we did wrong from Modus, and then I can work on fixing that soon. But that kind of came out of our discussion group too, that a little powwow perhaps with you guys at that Gateway at some point in time among the group that was working on this would be hugely useful in kind of planning where we go. What do you guys have plans for? Like, we have a JSON schema now, so if you want to take that, you can, like, unless you don't like it at all, then then we'll fix it and make a different one. So I think there's an Ag Gateway meeting hopefully coming up soon for that. For me, the next up is there's just some tweaks left for that universal translator. That was the core code Sam and I was putting together. So hopefully that universal translator is not just on the command line, which, by the way, you can run one command and tell it to HTML, and it'll actually go give you back Tim and JD and Kenny's reports even. So you just run that command, and now you have reports back for all your Modus JSON. So finishing that up and putting that up at the GitHub page where this project is hosted to be the drop zone that Tim showed. It's just a drop zone. Drop in whatever you have, your thing from the lab, your Modus JSONs, a zip file of a mishmash of all those things. Say what you want it as. I want the HTML reports. I want the Modus JSON out, whatever, and go. You just drop it in and you'd have it come out. So that's the next step for me on those. There is going to be an ongoing effort all the time of adding lab formats. We've gotten, I think, we've reached out to 50 labs. We've got 3 so far. Everyone is different, vastly different. And so this is going to be a yeoman's work here of trying to get that done, but it will be there. Sam and I have had some really good luck standardizing, making slight tweaks to those things, and then they all parse just fine with the same parser. But what we realized as we were doing that is, you know, one of the hurdles for labs to get Modus is they got to have an IT guy that can make Modus. They all seem perfectly capable of making spreadsheets, but getting stuff into XML or JSON or something that involves a second skill set. Well, guess what? We can give them a framework by which to make spreadsheets. And if you can give us the spreadsheets, you get Modus for free. Just don't do weird things like making your spreadsheet have the same column names and wrapping it so that it's not just a big list of rows, okay? Put your units here in this way. If you do that, this thing will parse it. You get Modus for free, no extra IT that you gotta hire. And even if you don't want to do it, the people you give your stuff to will work. So I think there could be an effort here to at least evangelize to the labs that, hey, there is some guardrails to work in within your exports of CSVs and spreadsheets. And if you can do that, you're a part of this community de facto without much effort. So I'm really excited about that one. Next up, I think one of the biggest next things is plan round 2. What is round 2 going to be? Which of all these 100 things that we've come up with do we want to do next? I guess I would end with 2 pieces. One, my dream for where we go from here is that I have a big folder full of soils data. I have about 10 years worth of soil samples and PDF files. My dream from my farm, from 60 odd fields, my dream is that I actually could use that because right now it sits there. So maybe someday, years down the road, we get this to the point where I could actually look at how the phosphorus is changing on one of my fields. You know, that would be nice. That's really where I would like to go. But as a grower, that's not a big deal. Like, all your soil samples are accessible to you in some easy way. And so the last one, and this is where we actually put this on hold for this hackathon. Normally our group works on APIs. We're really focused on trying to make data move from platform to platform to platform. We have an API framework for creating standardized APIs. It can happen in real time. It can use all kinds of different data. You can build whole privacy suites on top of it, you know, like a Agape search that we didn't get to talk about much. Like, there's all kinds of great stuff we can do if we can standardize an API so that my tool could just go to your account at your lab and grab all of your samples and put them straight into your software. There's no emailing of files around. There's no extra stuff to do. It can all just happen behind the scenes, because our vision at Oats is that what farmers really want from their data, and really everybody, is that they can get data from wherever it started to where they want it to end up without manual intervention. They want to use the tool, but they don't want to touch the bits. And that's where our APIs come into play. So I'd really like to see in a round 2 that we can actually pull some real-time APIs together, even with this with this stuff and some integrations with FarmOS. They've got an API there as well, and start to turn this into an ecosystem that you just point things where they need to go and they do the work. So that's it for me.
Great, thank you, Aaron. So I want to just wrap up here a little bit today with kind of, again, some of these practical next steps. So, at Farm Foundation, we talk about, we accelerate people and ideas, and I feel like we got that job done here a little bit. We connected folks, we got some ideas going, and we're going to keep down that gas pedal of trying to work through these things. So as I said earlier, go ahead and send me your ideas, thoughts, ways, resources that I can share, groups that we can connect, and we'll be working with the OATS team, Open Team, and lots of the other folks you've seen here today to kind of carry this forward. Rocket ship is the right. That's great. Thank you. Yes. So I am going to now hand it over to Jennifer Clark if she is ready to talk about one of these next steps, which is the National Ag Producers Data Cooperative. So I'll be posting in the chat a survey link for that project, which she's going to talk to you about for a moment, and then we'll wrap up for the day. Or Morgan's got it there already. There you go. Great.
Thanks,
Jennifer,
guys. Yeah, can you all hear me? Is that okay? Thanks, Martha and Morgan. I just wanted to take 30 seconds because I know I'm right before you get to leave and go to the rest of your life. So I'm at the University of Nebraska, and I'm leading a project for the USDA to develop a national data framework specifically for producers. So USDA will call this open, and I'm always careful to use that word in communities around data. USDA means open from the standpoint of anybody can participate, right? Not that all the data and resources that are put in there are necessarily open to everyone. It's giving the data owners control over how they share, who they share with. And so it covers soil, but it also covers all the other spaces in agricultural data that's relevant to producers. This was starting a national framework was mandated to USDA in the last Farm Bill. And so this is part of their efforts. At this point, it's data gathering. It's talking to community members. So today I'm talking to soil, but last week I was talking to plants, and the week before that I was talking to animals. I'm also talking to microbes. I mean, so it's covering all the spaces in ag data. And I think what you've been talking about over the last 2 days is very consistent with the type of framework that the USDA is looking to build. It's providing access, not just to data, but to ontologies, to tools, to predictive analytics, to pipelines, to JSON, so you can do data integration. It's linking those who are interested in soils with existing databases that have complementary data. So I don't know how many of you are aware of AgBioData. It's a group of databases in plants, but also animals, that they do a lot of work in ontologies and integrating different types of data. So I think soil is a part of the picture that's very important, but it also goes along with animals, plants, growers, weather, lots of other data that can be brought into the picture. So as part of our efforts to build this framework, we're listening to the community, right? The idea is support what the community wants, support what producers want, so we move in the right direction. So there is a survey link that's in the chat. Please, please, please fill out the survey. I know everyone gets inundated with surveys, but it will really be important. Your surveys will be taken seriously, and we'll go into how we construct a blueprint for a national data framework. So what else I'm going to add to the chat is the URL for the webpage for the project. You're welcome to come and look at everything. You can sign up for our listserv. We offer monthly webinars. The OATS group did a great webinar earlier this year. We're open to webinars from other projects that want to disseminate what they're doing in their activities across the ag data community. So I also want to let everyone know that we will be hosting a conference next year on how we're building this framework, the blueprint. So if you're interested in data, cyber infrastructure, privacy, and how to make cyber infrastructure actionable and usable by the producer community, then I encourage you to attend, and I'll just keep updating the webpage with information about the conference. So thank you. I don't want to take too much of your time, but just a minute or two. And thank the Oats group for inviting me to say something about the coalition, because they're an important partner of ours. So thanks, everyone.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, everyone who has put in the hard work to pull this off. Thank you especially to Aaron, the Oats team, and all the programmers who've been working, you know, the last couple of days and nights on this and then some. So thank you all for this. Thanks everybody for joining us. We're so appreciative of everybody staying on, connecting folks here. That's a wrap for our soil health, fixing the soil health tech stack hackathon and conference. Thanks, everybody.